What is freedom? I've been asking myself that as an American who was born and raised in this country his whole life. And we've been told from a young age that we're born into the freest country in the world, that we are the freest people in the world, that we have the most freedoms out of any other place in the world. We are free, we're free this, free that, free this thing, free that thing, FREE, that spells freecreditreport.com, baby. We're that kind of people. We're just so free that we're the envy of the developed world, that other nations look to us and they drool at the sight of American freedom. Which, as I've grown older, I've come to the conclusion that a lot of that is bullshit. I mean, if you're around my age and you're American, I think you've probably come to the same conclusion that we are definitely not the freest country in the world. As someone who likes to delve into the mindset of American politics and just American policy in general, I'm of the mindset of, if we're supposed to be free, if we're the freest country in the world where we enjoy freedoms that other places don't get, then how come there's things here in America that other places are able to do that we don't do? And I'm specifically referring to other parts of the developed world, like Canada, for example, or Germany, or the Netherlands, or even Japan. How come there's things that in their countries they can do that we can't do here in the US? Because of what is their freedoms, from what it sounds like, their freedom sounds a lot nicer than our freedom. Because our freedom right now here in America, if this is the biggest thing that a lot of Americans always argue every now and then, the age of consent in this country is 18. You know, pretty good age to have your age of consent set to. It's a pretty agreeable age to set the age of consent to across the board. People in other parts of the world might disagree on that. I genuinely think 18 is a perfect age to be set for, anything that you want to do as an adult. You should be classified as an adult at 18, and if you are being classified as an adult at the age of 18, you are now of the legal age of consent. That means that you should be able to partake in the following: drinking alcohol, smoking weed, being able to rent a car, things like that. If you are viewed as a legal adult at 18, then how come when I turn 18, I had to wait a few more years until I could crack open a cold one with the boys? What kind of stupid logic is that? In other parts of the world, when they have their age of consent at 18, 18 is basically where everything starts at for you. You're 18, congratulations, you can buy booze. You're 18, the country allows weed smoking, you can smoke weed. On the topic of weed, I never understood the fact that America likes to tout itself as though we're the freest country in the world, but yet, God forbid, if you're in a state where marijuana is illegal, your ass is getting handcuffed and thrown into the slammer for a certain period of time. Yeah, very free. Very free, right? We're so fucking free in that sense. Again, on the alcohol thing, if you are a 19-year-old and you decide to take a sip of a bud, and God forbid you are in the presence of law enforcement, you could be arrested for that. Meanwhile, if you go across the border into Canada, or you go across the border into Mexico, you, the 19-year-old who took a sip of that bud, took a sip of that Budweiser, I mean Budweiser in this case, not bud as in weed, but if you took a sip of bud, it's perfectly fine. Once you're 18, you can go ahead and drink till your heart's content, as it should be. If you're considered an adult, you should have the right to be, being able to drink, alcohol. It just makes sense. I mean, if I'm old enough at 18 to enlist, to be required to sign up for selective service, something that most American men definitely are not too big fans of having to sign up for, I sure as hell wouldn't want to fight in the United States military for an idiot like Donald Trump. And yes, I make no secret of the fact that I hate the United States president with all my heart. Sorry, conservatives or anyone right-leaning who watches this. I mean, to be fair, though, if you still support Donald Trump despite all the tariffs and all the other economic blunders he's had, then I do question your intelligence to some extent, and sorry, not sorry for mentioning that. You can call me a libtard all you want. I'm very pro-Second Amendment, and I hate wokeness with all my heart, so do with that information as you wish. But on the other subject of freedom, if we are in the freest country in the world, how come here in the United States, if I want to I don't know, if I want to buy a hooker, for example, I'm an 18-year-old, I'm an adult, I want to buy a prostitute. I should have full legal ability to do that. How come in Germany you can do that? Or in the Netherlands you can do that? That sounds a lot freer than what we can do here in the United States. How come here in the United States it's a crime to sell one's own body for sex? Well, yeah, sell one's own body for sex. I don't know what I was trying to word that as in my head. If you wanna sell yourself, for sex, you should be fully allowed to do that. If you're at 18 and you want to decide to yourself, yeah, I want to sell off my human goods for some dinero, you should be fully legally able to do that. It's your freedom. It's your freedom and your right to do that. It should be your right to do that. You're saying, oh, but that's illegal because that can lead to huge problems for that. Again, freedom is you should have the freedom to do something that is not impeding on somebody else's freedom. If your freedom, obviously you should not have the freedom to kill someone. That's a very obvious thing, because your freedom of killing somebody is impeding on the freedom of that person to live. It's freedom is basically you should have the freedom to do things that don't cause others harm. If you're saying, oh, well, what about your family members? If you decide to take up weed smoking, doesn't that hurt your family members because they see you smoking weed? I'm referring to anything that impedes on their freedom. Basically, something like killing someone is going to immediately impede on their freedom because you've just impeded on their freedom to live. You're really having a huge negative impact on their quality of life. But if you're with your own family, if you're selling yourself off for sex, or you're buying drugs and consuming them for yourself, you're not harming anyone else in the process. You should have the full legal ability to do that. You are an adult. The only person who you are causing any form of harm to physically and possibly even psychologically is yourself. That is what freedom is all about, in my personal honest opinion. You should have the full right to buy a bottle of booze as soon as you turn 18. You should have the full ability to smoke weed as soon as you turn 18. Hell, you should have the full ability to smoke weed regardless. Well, obviously not under 18, but as an American, you should have the right to be able to go, get weed wherever the hell you want. You should have the right to be able to get any drug if you want. Why the hell is the federal government telling me what I can and can't put in my body? That doesn't sound very free to me. Why the hell is if somebody wants to snort a line of coke, yeah, that's gonna harm you, but should you have the right to do it? Of course. The federal government shouldn't be telling you, it's like, you can't snort a line of coke because that's illegal. But isn't that impeding on somebody else's freedom to harm themselves? If you're harming yourself from the act of doing drugs, then by all means, it's your own body. Do with it as you wish. Why is the federal government telling you what you can and can't do in that sense? It's not, again, it's one of those things where, as I've grown older over the years, I even thought about these things back when I was, as far back as when I was in high school. It's like, yeah, why the hell do we call ourselves free when I can't buy a hooker here in the United States? That's considered illegal in most parts of the country. I think there's some exceptions to it in Las Vegas, from what I recall. I may be wrong on that. I can't, buy a blunt, or I can't buy, a dime bag of weed in certain parts of the country because apparently that's considered, a Schedule I substance. That's really dangerous. Apparently that's a very dangerous substance, even though, the person who's consuming said dangerous substance is oneself. You're not forcing somebody else to consume it. You are consuming it for yourself. You know that this is harmful for you, but you're still going to take it because, again, you have the full right to do that, as you should be able to. I've never understood the American concept of constantly claiming that we are the freest nation in the world. It's like, okay, every other part of the world has freedom. I think I'm remembering a clip of a specific TV show where there was this guy who was explaining about freedom. Other countries have freedom. Canadians have freedom. Mexicans have freedom. The Japanese have freedom. Hell, the Chinese have freedom. Now, some people would say, well, the CCP and blah, blah, blah. No. Freedom in itself is the idea that you are fully in control of your own destiny. You are fully in control of your own health. You are fully in control of your life. Nobody else can tell you what you can and can't do with that. That is freedom. If you are some guy living in some random part of I'm trying to think of a very oppressive dictatorship, like Turkmenistan, for example. If you're some guy who just lives in the middle of nowhere of Turkmenistan, technically you have freedom. You just basically can't go in a place like Turkmenistan and tell the dictator of Turkmenistan that he sucks, because he's probably going to throw you into the slammer and may even kill you in the process. You can't do that, but your freedom as you being able to conduct yourself however you want, you do have the freedom to do that in Turkmenistan. There are obviously consequences for your freedom, but in a nation that touts itself as being the freest place in the world, it never made sense to me how here in the US, we claim we're the best, we claim we're the freest, but yet here in the US, yeah, pretty nice that I can buy a handgun, pretty nice that I can buy myself an AR-15, you should have the right to be able to bear arms. I'm pro Second Amendment. I agree that you should be able to have the right to bear arms. But at the same time, if I have the right to own a firearm, I should also have the right to buy drugs and use them on myself. I'm damaging my own body, I should have the right to do that. If I have the right to buy cigarettes, if I have the right to buy alcoholic beverages, things that are known to cause harm to your own body, I should have the right to do that. If I can do that for one substance, why can't I do it for another? I should have the right as an American to go out and buy a hooker. Why on earth is it if you are a consenting adult and the person whose sex services you are buying is also a consenting adult, then by all means do with that as you wish. Pay for sex. It should be legal. If it's legal in Germany, if it's legal in the Netherlands, why the hell can't it be legal here in the United States? Again, we're touting ourselves as the freest nation in the world. In fact, if anything, if we legalize prostitution, that would actually help get rid of the human trafficking problem in the world. If you legalize, tax, and regulate something appropriately, it can be a pretty good source of income for the nation's economy. On top of all that, you're actually practicing what you preach, that you are the freest place in the world. Because right now, it doesn't feel very free when there's certain things here in the US that you can be arrested for that in other parts of the developed world you wouldn't be arrested for at all. In my opinion, it contradicts the whole American notion that we're so free. I know I've said freedom so many times, I'm like Ronald Reagan at this point, babbling on about freedom this and freedom that, and there's bald eagles screeching as I'm saying all this shit. But in all honesty, it's one of those things that I always wanted to ramble about and just give my 2 cents on, because I genuinely have, it blows my mind. Now, some people would say, like, oh, you're just wanting to send the United States into depravity and degeneracy, and we're supposed to be good, moral people. Folks, let's just be honest. The United States is not a Christian nation, as some people like to define it as. I don't care how many times I have to repeat that statement. The United States is not a theocracy. Christianity is not the law of the land. If you want to be a good Christian and, not take whatever substances or have sex until you're married, or whatever thing that you believe in, good for you. You should have every right to do with your own religion as you please, as to yourself. But you should not be able to have the right to tell other people how they should and shouldn't live their lives. It's one of those things where I agree heavily with libertarians. Why the hell is the federal government telling me what I can't put into my body, what I can't spend my money on? If I'm not harming somebody else, and if it's something that involves another person, we're both consenting to it, if we're both consenting adults to it, we should be able to do it. If you're saying, oh, that's gonna ruin our moral standing, folks, come on, we're the United States. We elected Donald Trump twice to be president. I don't think we have any room to argue that we're the pinnacle of morality in the world at this point. And if you're saying, well, you see, Bush did this and Obama did this, folks, at least in their cases, they tried to give off the appearance that they looked moral to some extent. Donald Trump is just depravity and degeneracy personified and put on a pedestal, and on the highest pedestal on Earth. Of course, the pedestal is kind of shrinking more and more with each day, unfortunately. But again, anyone who tells me that we can't do this because that's immoral or that's not this, but it's freedom, and it's not impeding on somebody else's freedom. You're not violating somebody else's freedom by having these freedoms. It doesn't make sense to me. if I'm American and I'm being told since I was a child in this country that I'm in the freest country in the world, then I goddamn better well be in the fucking freest country in the world. And I expect my goddamn country to be the freest country in the world in every regard of the freest country in the world, with understandable, reasonable constraints to it. You know, you shouldn't have the right to just simply kill somebody, obviously. But you should have the right to, as soon as you become a legal adult in the United States, you should have the full right to do with your own body as you wish. And nobody should be telling you otherwise. And anybody who tells you otherwise is completely against the concept of freedom. And if you are against the concept of freedom, then I hate to break it to you and sound like I'm some pundit on Fox News, but that's pretty un-American. If you're against the concept of freedom, as is the case with some of these people I see on certain circles here of the American political spectrum, where they say, I should have the right to impede on your freedoms because it goes against my moral beliefs, then I hate to break it to you, that's pretty un-American to say something like that. Because the most American thing you can tell somebody is, you want to light up that cigarette at 18? Go for it, my guy. You want to light up that joint? Go for it. You want to snort a line of coke? You're an adult? Go for it. Want to buy some hookers? Want to buy some hookers and do blow? Go for it, my guy. You want to own an AK-47? Go for it. As long as, it's between consenting adults and you are not impeding on somebody else's freedom, go for it, my guy. We shouldn't be letting people tell us what we can and can't do in our private lives. It's just the most un-American shit I've ever heard when people argue about how we need to be more moral and stuff. It's like those people who wanna ban adult content from the internet. I don't know if I can say the actual word on a platform like YouTube. Fuck it, I'm just gonna say it. If this video, either ways, I don't expect to make any money off any of these videos. If I hear people, specifically the Christian right or the moral right, and now again, oh no, he's saying right, he's saying conservative. Look, I think social conservatism is stupid. It's literally, it goes against the idea of it goes against the principles that the United States was founded on, in my honest opinion. It goes against the concept of freedom. Social conservatism goes against the very concept of freedom, in my honest opinion. But the thing is that if somebody is telling you, this is right and this is wrong because my book of this religious text or whatever told me this, again, you have every right to believe in whatever you want to believe in. Now that's freedom. But freedom is not telling everybody around you that they're gonna burn in hell because, they're not believing in what you believe in, or they're gonna go to the shadow realm or some nonsense because they're not believing in what you believe in. They're not true believers, and those who are not true believers, they need to be corralled into becoming true believers. Going back to where my train of thought had gone on a tangent on, I never understood the people who here in America want to ban pornography. The whole point of the whole thing of pornography is, there's adults in it, having the doing the nasty in front of a camera. If it's all adults, it's fully consensual, what's the problem? But there are some people here in this country with backwards, very Taliban-esque, very ISIS level mindsets, very theocratic mindsets that can equate to something like the government of Iran or like the government of Saudi Arabia or something, where they're like, you cannot wank to pornography because that is a sin. Well, tough tits that you think it's a sin, that's your freedom to think it's a sin, but it's not your freedom to tell the rest of us that we have to adhere by what you think is a sin, because that's what your religious views are telling you is a sin and what's not a sin. The whole thing, as an American, and I'm only referring to my own country, so and anyone who's watching this who's not American, I mean, you can tune in and listen. I mean, you've already tuned in for quite a bit of this whole spiel I've been given for the past couple minutes, but for Americans specifically, tell me, You know, tell me if you don't agree with this. This is freedom. If we are so free, then we should actually be practicing what we preach and be free. You know, who the hell are these bozos to tell us that, oh no, you can't do this because my morality book or whatever told me that you can't do this? That's bullshit. And you know it's bullshit. It's the most un-American sounding at the principle of what the United States is supposed to be as a country, of what we've been told since we were little the United States is supposed to be. Don't you think that if we're the freest country on earth, then we should be doing our damnedest to make sure that we're the freest country in the world? If the Netherlands has some freedom that we don't have, that makes sense that we should have, then why don't we have it? Why the fuck don't we have it? We should have it. We're the freest country in the world, for fuck's sake. Anyways, I got that off my chest, so thank you all for listening to this ramble about from an American, from a gringo's perspective of his own country and the concept of freedom as his own country claims. it claims to have an abundance of. Thank you for tuning into this. Hopefully you got some kind of change in worldview, or I don't know, some whatever, or maybe if you were doing dishes or cleaning or driving on the road, this gave you something to listen to. Also, on an unrelated note, I'd like to thank my previous video about AI Darth Vader, because that bad boy is, for at least right now, it hasn't reached it yet, but I think it's like 1 or 2 views away from reaching the coveted 1,000 views. It is my first 1,000 view video ever, and I am very giddy with excitement. I am a very happy man at that one really made my day, seeing that one spike up in popularity. So hopefully this video, I don't think it'll get to that level of popularity. This is just me doing what I've always done on this channel. To those of you who subscribed to me because of that video, thank you. Not all my content is going to be like that. Most of my content tends to be either stream VODs or this. So again, if you're not, if you don't like what this content is, if you disagree with it, I mean, feel free to unsubscribe. I don't really care if you're subscribed or not to the channel. I mean, nice if you're subscribing. You know, it helps me get that number up. I just like seeing the number go up. I'm like one of those people who plays strategy games, or it's like I like seeing numbers grow. Anyways, thank y'all for watching, and y'all have a great day.